Okay, it's 7 minutes, so let's stop. This word count thing is something that we do as writers. The programs that I teach in and the kinds of workshops I teach, we often say to people, you will submit 5,000 words, 10,000 words, 15,000 words. This word count is much more reliable than pages, although there is a standard manuscript format that we use. But still, the point about word count, and we're talking about prose here. Poetry is a little bit different. You wouldn't do a word count in poetry. But in prose, it's simply that, those million words that Henry Miller talked about, you can throw some of them away. But you can't throw them away until you've written them. And that's about, I have thrown away so many words. Hundreds of thousands of words. You have to. It's the only way you can figure out where you're getting to. Now, the good thing about computers is that you don't waste as much paper. I can tell you in the days before computers, which is when I started writing, I amassed a great amount of paper with words that never turned into anything. I also keep journals, and in my writing journals, I would sort of write this kind of thing. Why do I want to write this thing? I'll ask myself, I still ask myself the question. In fact, I just finished asking myself the question again, just a few days ago. Because it's the most fundamental thing to ask about anything you're going to devote time to. Also, you have a finite amount of time, so you want to know when you plunge into doing a certain project, and I'm sure you probably all do this with any abstracts or research projects you take on. You have to make a decision. Do I do this one or this one? And why? And it's got to be the one that really matters. That's why I think the why of what you want to write is fairly important. Okay, so let's move on to one of the hows. This is what I call the problem of genre. Now remember in the exercise that I asked you to turn, and I said, you can be creative, you can write it any way you want, you can make it an interview, you can have somebody who dislikes you tell the story of who you are, you can do it any way you want. But most of you chose fairly, creative, but fairly safe ways. Now I'll show you why. Genre is an organizing principle, basically. Now, John Gardner wrote one that is still a seminal text for those of us who study and teach creative writing. He's sort of been replaced by quite a number of other guys by now, and gals. But he was one of the early ones who set the tone for how we think about writing fiction. And although this is for the writing of fiction, what he says actually applies right across the board, whether you're writing drama, or poetry, or creative nonfiction. That it is that primary unit of thought. And I think it's relevant. And in today's workshop, I will concentrate on prose. Now, there are two reasons for this. The first is that I'm not a poet. But the second reason is that poetry as a genre has so many more forms than prose, with very strict rules of rhyme and meter, that it really requires its own workshop focus. I mean, I was an English major as an undergraduate, so of course I studied all the forms of poetry, and then I immediately forgot them. I get to this day, I'll go, I'll read something, I'll say, okay, so this is a trochaic, and I have to go, what? I gotta think about it. But poets have to know all of this. They just have to have absorbed all this, which is why I'm not a poet. It's just too difficult, okay? So what happens that most of the submissions fell into the overall genre of nonfiction in the form of what I would call sort of like memoir, personal essay. And a few of you chose some other creative approaches. So let's talk about creative nonfiction, or what we sometimes refer to as CNF. Okay? So Silverman is one of the sort of key people we use for teaching. She's also actually a former colleague of mine, because this book of hers has become quite an important one for people who want to write memoir. Now, let's think about creative nonfiction, and probably the form that is most common, and in fact is what you're all many of you are sort of using, is memoir, whether it's a whole book or in an essay form. We sometimes call this life writing. That's another genre term, but it's often taught in universities as life writing. It's more or less the same thing. And many of you also use the kind of confessional tone that Silverman describes here. Also, many of you were looking into issues of gender, which is not surprising since this is the Women's Studies Research Center. And that's why I chose this particular quote, because there are many, many texts on the writing of creative nonfiction. But I chose a memoir, and I chose one by somebody who really can speak to the question of courage, because it does take a certain fearlessness to address some of these issues of gender. And actually to write most kinds of memoir takes courage, but I think particularly women's issues is still fraught with so much that is difficult to express, so I chose this. Sue Silverman became well known for with her first memoir, which is about incest. She was a victim of incest by her own father. And she was 5 years old when it first began. So you can imagine that she has had to go through a huge journey to do this. And today she's a really wonderful teacher of creative nonfiction. In fact, I learned a great deal about writing creative nonfiction, because I came to that later in life than fiction from Sue. Now, other subgenres, if you like, of creative nonfiction can include a whole host of things. Autobiography and biography, for example. Now, so what's the difference between autobiography and memoir? What do you think the difference is? You and I, we write memoir. But if you're like a movie star or the president of a country, maybe you write an autobiography. Okay. Usually autobiography is for famous people. Not strictly, but generally. Okay, that's the term. And biographies, of course, you writing about somebody else. Spiritual religious writing definitely falls into creative nonfiction. It's a growing form. It's quite popular and taught quite a lot now. Sports writing is another big field, something I know very little about since I don't write about sports. Literary and immersion journalism, something like In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, for example, where a writer takes on a subject matter and immerses herself or himself into the subject until they almost become a part of the story as well. Okay? So that's quite a popular form of immersion journalism. But of course, this comes closer to journalism in that it's much more heavily research-based. You really have to spend a lot of time studying the subject. A lot of the true crime stories are like that. They take on a kind of, this is based on a true story kind of thing, that sort of thing. Satire, of course, is a classic form of creative nonfiction. Lyric essays or other experimental essay forms, there are many now. They've become very, very popular. The list essay, the erasure essay, it's very much like poetry. Some of it is really very esoteric, probably more so than for you. Now, generally, in the genre that we call creative nonfiction, we don't usually include straight news reporting, like reportage, or academic writing. But narrative as a technique used for writing CNF of any kind could be used in reportage and academic writing. Although those forms have more strict genre rules of their own. There's certain things you have to do if you're going to write a critical paper. There's certain things you have to do if you're going to write a news report. You can use some narrative techniques, but you can't use it as freely as you might in some other forms. So that's just a sort of reality of it. So that's creative nonfiction. Questions first at this point? CNF?
Actually, so when you introduced the gender question, I was thinking a lot of this is there's a criticism for women who do this sort of work.
Oh, yeah.
The quote helps us think about the ways in which we can address that, but I just wondered, how would you advise us to think about that as teachers, writers?
I think the idea of owning what you write is really important. That's why I emphasize the why of what you want to write. You have to believe that this is important enough to put it down and put it out there. And I think that that is fundamentally the problem with a lot of women's writing, and that a lot of women often say, and this I've heard it over and over again in workshops I teach for nonfiction students, for nonfiction writers, who are trying to write personal stories or essays or whatever. It's like, well, who would be interested in my story? And I'm like, you were raped by your, cousin or whatever when you were 15 years old, and then you were beaten by your father, and you think your story is not important? Now, it doesn't always have to be trauma, of course. But I mean, women's stories, like, okay, the other thing that women often say to me is like, well, I'm just a mother, I'm just a housewife. That's so, like, who's interested in that? Excuse me, if we didn't have housewives and mothers, where the hell would we be in life? And I really think that that's part of it, this idea that you should own and believe in what you write. And I think that I can't help emphasizing enough how important that is. And I have taught with Suso Women. In the program I used to teach in, we used to have 2 teachers in the workshop. And so we each give our own points of view about the work that we were discussing with the students. And one of the things we tried very, very hard to do, and this is why I admire her as a teacher and writer, is to make it a safe space for women to talk about whether it's traumatic things or things, gender issues that they would not be comfortable saying elsewhere or outside, or issues of self-image and identity. We know that for a lot of women's studies, the question of body image is a big one, right? Am I too fat? Am I too thin? And all this, and why am I anemic? Why am I bulimic? All of this. And it's all part of the narrative of women's lives. But it's important, because why? What? Women are like half the population on this planet. So, hello, we matter. And I think that's a big, big part of it. Because like what she says here, that many critics don't yet understand that when we confess, we seek the commonality of our experience. If you talk to other women, you find very quickly that a lot of them share the same notions, ideas, and that it's worth studying, it's worth writing about. Thus adding to the full range of what it means to be intensely human. The other side of this is, of course, women weren't educated until more recent centuries, right? They didn't get to participate as the ones to put things down in writing, because it was all men. There were a handful of women who were lucky enough, perhaps, who managed to break through and write. Let's say, I think any time before the 17th century, probably, you didn't have an awful lot of women's literature. There is some, obviously, but not as huge an amount as literature by men in any genre. And that's just the truth of our existence. Women's rights did not even become a term until probably the 19th century, I would say. So I mean, this is what we live with, and that's why we're playing catch up maybe a little bit, so it's, we just have to be that much noisier. I believe in being noisy, that's the only way to get any attention, right? So, other questions about creative nonfiction? Okay, so let's think about fiction. Since some of you did write sort of fiction, which I thought was quite interesting, so introducing yourself. Okay, Nabokov, I'm sure you all heard of. He's most famous for the novel Lolita, which is about a pedophile. He was also mad about butterflies, which is the thing I like about him, because butterflies are infinitely inspiring. Here's the thing about fiction, and I can't emphasize this enough. It's made up. Okay, let's not make any mistake about that. If you're writing fiction, you're making up stuff. All right? It's about invention. Now, it can be based on a real event or persons. Historical novels, especially, are very much based on real events. But the author is taking some liberties and maybe creating a character that didn't really exist, that sort of thing. But it's all about stories that are made up. So the primary forms in literary fiction, at least, but true in others too, but very much so in what we consider literature, would be like the novel, the novella, the short story, or flash or microfiction. It's basically just length. So a novel is usually at least, about to 80,000 words, and that's why the word count matters. Because when you think about genre and form, it's often defined in word count, at least the publishing industry does. In young adult fiction, it's defined even more, some of you who I think somebody mentioned they were interested in writing for children. It's very specific. For the ages of 3 to 5, you may do this. For the ages of this to this, you may do that, It's quite specific. But the approach can be very, very varied in terms of how you write fiction. There's sort of your straight realistic fiction is probably the most common. Once upon a time this happened, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then the hero does whatever, or heroine. But there's also things like metafiction, which is kind of a fiction of writing about the process of writing. You have a lot of experimental fiction as well. You have magic realism, which is immensely popular these days. Everybody thinks that they want to write magic realism. But there are also many genres in fiction. Things like romance, mystery, suspense, horror, fantasy, science fiction, speculative, all of this, okay? And so and young adult fiction, the sort of Harry Potter thing is huge. If you really want to be a serious writer and make money from it, write young adult fiction. That's like the biggest genre. The people I know, the friends I have who write young adult work are the ones who make really good money on their fiction. The rest of us, we just eat by, So, but fiction, of course, much more than nonfiction, really relies heavily on narrative. Because most fictions tend to have a story, and that requires narrative. So, questions about fiction?
I have a question about, these days there are more and more female writers who kind of create their own genre. It's a mixture of many different things. Are you familiar with Svetlana Alexievich?
I'm sorry?
She's a Belarusian writer. She's Svetlana Alexievich, and I think she won the Nobel Prize in 2015. But
She's the one who wrote nonfiction, though, isn't she?
But she called it a novel chorus, so yeah.
But that's not new. The novel, the non-fictional novel has become a thing now,
Yeah.
I don't personally like that term, but I think it does exist. And people come to me and say, I want to write a non-fiction novel. I say, okay. But I do understand what that is, because it is what's happening right now. And I think the merging of fiction and non-fiction now is coming much closer. In fact, one of the reasons I think she won is that she is sort of novelistic as well.
Yeah, I guess they try to consider her.
But she won as a nonfiction writer. Patrick Modiano, the Nobel Prize winner from France, writes fiction that doesn't look like any fiction I've ever read. Okay, it is a sort of story that doesn't resolve and loops back on itself and feels more like nonfiction than fiction, but it is fiction. So that's quite interesting too. Yeah, there are a lot of forms now, and fan fiction, that's really quite interesting. Fan fiction is, in a way, many of us write fan fiction. I write fan fiction because I'm a fan of a lot of writers I read, and in a way, I'm trying to pay homage to them. And so that's a kind of fan fiction, but now there's a more formalized kind of fan fiction that goes on, and graphic novels, that's a form too, that's big now. I have no idea how to teach a graphic novel, but I have friends who do it, and I'm very curious how, and I've looked at the way they do it, but you kind of need a whole year in a class and people who can draw and write as well. So it's a bigger enterprise, So fiction is changing, but the novel, strangely, resists a lot of that. There's, the big novels that still sell today, that are most popular, still just tell a story with your character and are quite realistic and all that. That's still the biggest and most popular thing read, and the most desired thing by readers for reasons I don't entirely understand, but it is. In sort of literary studies, we are interested in things like stream of consciousness and all these very esoteric kind of things, but most readers buy stories. That's what we are. Other questions about fiction? Okay, so the question is, what should you write? Fiction or creative nonfiction? academic projects mostly would require narrative nonfiction that could borrow from creative nonfiction, although the goal may not be quite as much the art as simply just good writing, good narrative, okay? And the idea of wanting to record and examine. I think that, today in this workshop, you may try to write the narrative that is connected to your project. You don't have to. Don't feel you have to. You can write whatever you want. Because this is a creative writing workshop. And the thing about creative writing workshop is that we don't tell you what to write about. We just suggest that we want you to write along the lines of this. But you do it in however way you want to do it. Scott Russell Sanders, and this particular book, for those of you who are interested in a more creative approach to nonfiction, this is a great book to look at. This is a bunch of different essays, many different styles, many different forms. Everything from ones that look like fiction to ones that look like poetry, and everything in between. Okay? The Amy Tan essays in this one, the Mother Tongue essay, which is, I think, a pretty good essay of hers. Amy Tan actually writes very interesting nonfiction. She was a victim of Lyme disease, and her nonfiction about that was really instructive because she was misdiagnosed. Here was a famous writer who is very successful, who's quite wealthy, and the doctors would not believe her that she was going through something that didn't make sense to her. And she had to force the issue until she got diagnosed well. And she's Amy Tan. I mean, what chance do the rest of us have? But after I read that, I thought, I will never again be afraid of a doctor. That's the power of words. Okay? So, before we do the next writing exercise, I just want to take a few minutes to look at the question of language in the city. Because I think this so-called global English language that allows us to all sit here and talk about creative writing and all the rest of it, it's a problem. I don't know if you know Ha Jin, but he is a very well-known writer in America. He's Chinese. He went to America when he was 33. His first language is Chinese, but he writes in English. Now, he was a student of Western literature, so his influences are very much Western literature. But trust me, he knows his Chinese literature as well. He also knows how to do research in Chinese in the way that a Western writer writing about China who doesn't read Chinese or know Chinese as well does not have access to. He was a Red Guard, okay? But he's a very talented writer. So he wrote this very interesting book called The Writer as Migrant, and he talks about English as a language of betrayal, because that's what he did. And that's what, in China, they don't want to pay attention to him. He's exiled, he can't go back. Okay? He cannot go back to China. Not easily. I think maybe he could try to. I mean, he is an American citizen now, but he's even said of himself, I can no longer call myself a Chinese writer, because I do not write in Chinese. But he thinks in Chinese, and always will. If you read his English, you will see Chinese thought patterns in there. That's what I find so brilliant about it. It's not always understood. And I have taken issue with critics who review it in a way that I think shows a lack of understanding of the Chinese thought pattern in his English. But, I think what's interesting is that when he talks about this linguistic betrayal as the ultimate step that someone dares to take, and in this case as a migrant, he says any other act of estrangement after that amounts to a trifle. So you can write about anything, and he does. Now his early works were mostly about China, Cultural Revolution China. He was most famous for a book called Waiting, which won the National Book Award in America, but he's won all kinds of prizes. But he's also written about the Korean War from the Chinese North Korean perspective, because of course China was on the side of North Korea. Something we should tell a certain president of a certain country who doesn't seem to know that. But anyway, I think it's worth noting that this concept of teaching creative writing and this study of narrative is actually a rather Western one. Creative writing, pedagogy in particular, that originated in America. I mean, it's also taught very widely now in England and Australia, but it did originate in America. And because America is an immigrant country, it attracts people like Nabokov, like Hudson, who, you know, write in English instead. Egan Lee is another one who's done very, very well and who writes in English also. So your narratives here in Hong Kong are most likely all in English. The majority of you here, I'm looking around now, probably Chinese. And for many, I think English is probably not their first language. So I think it's worth pausing a moment in our workshop to consider this question of language. Because here's an award-winning, highly acclaimed literary writer from China. I think he actually does know what he's talking about, you know? And creative writing workshops, by their very nature, insist on challenging all participants to consider all aspects of writing. So this one is no different. So I'm just giving it to you, you know. Why are you writing in this language? You know? I know it's the language of international academia, but it's a form of betrayal too. And it's something to really consider. So those of you, especially who are doing projects that involve subjects in China, for example, you're going to represent this in English. Why aren't you representing it in Chinese? I have a book coming out where I question the medium of instruction in Hong Kong's university because I wonder when it will switch from English to Chinese. After all, China's MOI is Chinese, right? Yet they produce people who can speak English, so. Anyway, so writing exercise 2. A little more reflection and examination to try to understand what it is you really are trying to do in narrative. So, think about which genre would you like to write. And you know, feel free, you know, fiction or creative nonfiction. That's the only, you know, sort of limit I place. Pick one, fiction or creative nonfiction. And you can be more specific, say, I would like to write, if I had a choice, fiction, horror fiction, for example, you know, that kind of stuff. Or if I'm writing creative nonfiction, I want to write spiritual or meditative essays, you know, whatever it is. And in what language or languages? Many of you can probably write in more than one language, right? And why? So you have up to 200 words, but at least 150. So